My stepdaughter looked me dead in the eye on her 18th birthday and said the greatest gift I could give her was to disappear from their family forever. My wife nodded in agreement. Her real dad will take it from here. She said, so I did exactly that. I sold the house they thought was theirs. I canceled the college fund I had been building for 12 years, and what I left behind in that empty house absolutely destroyed them both. My name is Andy Dalton. I am 52 years old, and for the past 14 years, I thought I was building something real. A family, a life, a future worth protecting. Turns out I was just the ATM machine funding someone else's fairy tale ending. I met Claire at a charity gala at the Four Seasons Hotel in downtown Austin back in 2010. She was 34 then, recently divorced with a 4-year-old daughter named Emily. Claire worked in pharmaceutical sales, drove a leased BMW she could barely afford, and had this way of looking at you like you were the only person in the room. When she smiled, you forgot about everything else. When she talked about her struggles as a single mother, you wanted to fix everything for her. I was making good money as a commercial real estate developer in Austin, not wealthy by billionaire standards, but comfortable enough to own a nice house in the suburbs, drive a truck I had paid cash for, and save aggressively for retirement. I had been married once before in my 20s. No kids. That marriage ended amicably when we both realized we wanted different things. She wanted adventure and spontaneity. I wanted stability and planning. We split everything down the middle and stayed friends. Claire seemed different from my ex-wife. She valued security. She talked about wanting to build a stable home for Emily. She said she had learned from her first marriage that flashy romance mattered less than steady partnership. And I believed every word. Our first date was at a lakeside restaurant on Lady Bird Lake, where Emily joined us for dessert. She was adorable at 4 years old, all pigtails and missing teeth, telling me about her imaginary friend named Captain Whiskers who lived in her closet. Claire watched us interact with this grateful expression that made me feel like a hero just for being kind to a kid. We dated for 8 months before I proposed. Claire cried when I got down on one knee at the same restaurant where we had our first date. Emily was there too, holding a sign that said, "Will you be my daddy?" that Claire had clearly prepared in advance. How could I say no to that? We got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Emily was the flower girl, wearing a white dress that matched Claire's gown. During the reception, Claire gave a speech about how I had rescued them both from uncertainty and gave them a future to believe in. Everyone cried. I felt like the luckiest man alive. If you are enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your support helps me continue bringing you these powerful stories. Now, let us get back to what happened next. The first few years were good, really good. I sold my bachelor pad and bought a 4-bedroom house in Westlake Hills, one of the best school districts in Austin. Big backyard, updated kitchen, the kind of place you could imagine raising a family. Claire quit her pharmaceutical sales job because the hours were unpredictable, and she wanted to be more present for Emily. I supported that decision completely. What good was making money if your family never saw you? Emily called me dad within the first year. Her biological father, Daniel, had been inconsistent with visits and child support. He would show up for birthdays with extravagant gifts, then disappear for months. Claire said he was unreliable, immature, more interested in being Emily's friend than her parent. I became the stable presence, the one who helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences, coached her soccer team. I loved that kid, genuinely loved her. When she scored her first goal in soccer, I was the one screaming from the sidelines. When she had nightmares, I was the one who sat in her room until she fell back asleep. When she got her first period and was mortified, I was the one who drove to 3 different stores at midnight to find the right products because Claire was out of town at a conference. I adopted Emily legally when she was 8. Daniel did not contest it. He had moved to Seattle by then and had started a new family. The adoption meant Emily could have my last name, could be on my insurance, could inherit from me without complications. Claire cried happy tears at the courthouse. Emily wrote me a card that said, "You are my real dad now," with a crayon drawing of our family. I started a college fund for Emily the month we got married. automatic deposits every month, slowly building toward a goal of covering 4 years at a good university. By the time she turned 18, that fund had grown to just over $180,000. I also paid for her braces, her summer camps, her travel soccer fees, her SAT prep courses, every expense related to Emily. I covered without question or complaint. Claire and I had our tensions, but what marriage does not? She spent money faster than I could track it. Designer handbags, spa days, redecorating the house every 2 years because the style had changed. I would suggest budgets and she would get defensive, saying I was controlling. We would argue, then make up, then repeat the cycle. But I figured that was just marriage. You work through the rough patches. The real problem started about 2 years ago when Emily turned 16. She had always been a good kid, polite, hardworking, but something shifted. She became distant. When I would ask about her day, I would get one-word answers. When I would offer to help with homework, she would say she would rather figure it out herself. When I would suggest family movie nights, she would have plans with friends. Claire assured me it was normal teenage stuff. She is finding her independence, Claire would say. You are taking it too personally. But it felt like more than that. It felt like Emily was actively pulling away from me specifically. Then Daniel started coming around more frequently. He had moved back to Austin from Seattle and had apparently gotten his life together. New job in tech, decent apartment, engaged to a woman named Sarah who seemed stable. Emily started spending weekends at his place. At first, I thought it was healthy for her to reconnect with her biological father, but the way she would come home from those visits changed things. She would talk about how cool Daniel's place was, how he understood her better, how he did not lecture her about grades or curfews. Claire would smile and nod like this was all wonderful progress. I would feel this knot in my stomach that I could not quite explain. Last year, Emily started calling me Andy instead of Dad. The first time it happened, I thought I had misheard. We were at dinner and she asked, "Andy, can you pass the salt?" I looked at her confused and she just stared back like it was the most natural thing in the world. Claire did not correct her. Nobody else at the table reacted. That night, I pulled Claire aside. "Did you hear what Emily called me?" I asked. Claire shrugged. "She is 17, Andy. She is figuring out her identity. Maybe she feels more comfortable using your first name. But she has called me Dad for 13 years. I said, "This feels like she is rejecting me." "You are being oversensitive," Claire said. "She still loves you. This is just a phase." But it was not a phase. Over the next few months, I went from Dad to Andy in every interaction. And with that name change came a shift in how Emily treated me. I was no longer her father. I was Claire's husband, the guy who lived in the house and paid the bills. I tried talking to Emily directly about it. "Honey," I said one evening when Claire was at book club, "did I do something wrong? Why did you stop calling me Dad?" Emily looked up from her phone with this blank expression. "You are not my dad, Andy. Daniel is my dad. You are just the guy who married my mom." The words hit like a punch to the gut. "But Emily, I adopted you. I have been raising you since you were 4. Legally, I am your father." She rolled her eyes. "A piece of paper does not make you my father. Daniel is my real dad. You are just someone who was there while he got his life together." I sat there trying to process what I was hearing, trying to reconcile this cold stranger with the little girl who used to make me Father's Day cards and tell everyone at school that her dad was the best coach ever. "What about all the years we spent together?" I asked, hating how desperate I sounded. "All the soccer games, the homework help, the late-night talks. That was just you doing what my mom asked you to do," Emily said, returning her attention to her phone. "Do not act like you were doing me some huge favor." I brought it up with Claire later that night. She sighed like I was the problem. "Andy, you need to let Emily have her relationship with Daniel. You are acting jealous and possessive." "I am not jealous." I said, "I am hurt. I raised that girl. I loved her like she was my own blood. And now she is acting like none of it mattered." "You knew she had a biological father?" Claire said. "You knew Daniel would always be part of her life. Maybe you built up this fantasy that you could replace him. But that was never realistic." I stared at my wife. Seeing a stranger, This woman I had supported for 12 years, who had quit her job and lived comfortably on my income, was telling me I had been delusional about my role in our family. If you are enjoying this story so far, please take a moment to subscribe to the channel. Hit that like button and leave a comment below sharing your thoughts. Your support helps me continue bringing you these powerful stories. Now, let us get back to what happened next. The final explosion came 3 weeks ago on Emily's 18th birthday. We had planned a big party, invited all her friends and family, rented a private event space at the Driscoll Hotel downtown. I had spent weeks coordinating with Claire to make sure everything was perfect. The decorations, the catering, the photographer. Nothing was too good for Emily's milestone birthday. Daniel showed up at the party with his fiancée, Sarah. They brought an envelope that Emily opened right there in front of everyone. Inside were keys to a car, a brand new Toyota Camry, silver with a red bow on top, parked right outside the hotel. Emily screamed with excitement and hugged Daniel so hard she lifted him off the ground. Everyone clapped and took photos while Daniel basked in the glory of being the generous dad who gave the big gift. I had gotten Emily a laptop for college, top-of-the-line MacBook Pro, plus a check for $500 for textbooks. Practical gifts, useful gifts, the kind of presents a responsible parent gives. But compared to a car, my gifts looked pathetic, and everyone knew it. Later in the evening, after most of the guests had left, Emily was outside admiring her new car with a group of friends. I was inside settling the bill when Claire approached me with Daniel and Sarah. "Andy," Claire said, her voice in that careful tone people use when they are about to say something terrible. "Daniel and I have been talking, and we think it is time to have an honest conversation about the family dynamic." I looked between the three of them, my confusion obvious. "What family dynamic?" "Well," Claire continued, glancing at Daniel for support. "Emily is 18 now. She is an adult, and she has made it clear that she wants Daniel to be her primary father figure going forward." Daniel stepped forward, putting his hand on Claire's shoulder like they were a team. "Look, Andy, you have been great over the years. Really stepped up when I was going through my mess. But Emily has made her choice. She wants me in her life as her dad. And honestly, it might be easier for everyone if you took a step back." I looked at Claire, waiting for her to defend me, to remind them that I had been the one raising Emily for 14 years. But she just nodded along with Daniel's words. "Andy," Claire said softly, "you have to understand this from Emily's perspective. She is reconnecting with her biological father. That bond is important, and with her going to college soon, maybe it is time to acknowledge that your role in her life is changing." "Changing how?" I asked, my voice tight. "I am her legal father. I have supported her entire childhood. I have paid for everything. Does that just stop mattering because Daniel decided to show up again?" Emily appeared in the doorway, must have come in from the parking lot. She had clearly heard the conversation. "This is exactly why we need to have this talk," she said, crossing her arms. "Andy, you act like you are owed something because you spent money on me. But nobody asked you to do that. Mom could have managed without you." The words kept coming, each one worse than the last. "You were just convenient," Emily continued. "A stable income, a nice house in a good neighborhood. But that does not make you my father. Daniel is my dad. He always has been. You were just there filling space until he could be the parent I deserved." Claire reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "Andy, honey, Emily is just trying to be honest about her feelings. We think it would be best for everyone if you gave us some space. Let Daniel and Emily build their relationship without complications." "What kind of space?" I asked. Claire exchanged a look with Daniel, then turned back to me. "The house. Andy, we think you should move out. Let Daniel move in. He and Emily need time to reconnect properly. And it is just awkward with you here. The restaurant suddenly felt too small, too hot. My wife and stepdaughter were asking me to leave my own house so Claire's ex-husband could move in, and they were acting like this was a reasonable request. This is my house, I said slowly. I bought it. I pay the mortgage. You want me to just hand it over? Claire sighed. That is the problem right there. Everything is about money with you. This is supposed to be about what is best for Emily. Emily stepped closer, her face cold and determined. You want to know what would be best for me? Andy, the greatest gift you could give me for my 18th birthday is if you disappeared from our family forever. Just sign whatever papers you need to sign and let us move forward without you. I looked at my wife and waiting for her to correct Emily, to tell her she had gone too far. Instead, Claire nodded. Her real dad will take it from here. Andy, you have done enough. We will always be grateful for your support. But Emily has made her choice. Daniel and I need to co-parent her through college now. You are just going to complicate things. Something inside me went very cold and very clear in that moment. I looked at each of them. Emily with her entitled sneer. Claire with her guilty but determined expression. Daniel trying to look sympathetic while clearly thrilled about this development. Fine, I said quietly. If that is what you want, I will disappear. Emily smiled like she had won. Good. That makes everything easier. I am moving into Daniel's apartment next week anyway for the summer before college starts. By the time I come back for visits, I do not want to see you here. I nodded slowly, already calculating in my head. The house was solely in my name. Claire had never contributed to the mortgage. The college fund was in my name as custodian. Every asset we had accumulated during the marriage was tied to my income. I will take care of everything, I told them. You will not have to worry about me being in the way. Claire looked relieved. Thank you for being understanding about this. I know it is hard, but you will see this is better for everyone. We can still be friends. Andy, this does not have to be ugly. The drive home that night was the longest of my life. Not because of distance, but because I was processing 14 years of memories through a completely different lens. Every sacrifice I had made, every expense I had covered, every time I had put Emily's needs before my own wants, all of it had meant nothing. I was being discarded like an outdated appliance. When we got home, Claire went straight to bed, exhausted from the party. Emily was still out with friends, probably celebrating her new car and her successful removal of the inconvenient stepfather. I sat in my home office and started making calls. First call was to my real estate attorney, Rob, who I had known for 15 years through various property deals. Rob, I said when he answered, I need to sell my house fast and I need to make sure the sale is ironclad. The next morning, I woke up before Claire and started executing my plan. I had spent the night working through the legal and financial implications of everything. Texas is a community property state, but assets acquired before marriage or through inheritance remain separate property. The house had been mine before Claire and I married. She had no legal claim to it. The college fund was in my name as custodian for Emily's benefit. But since Emily was now 18, I could legally close that account and move the funds elsewhere. The adoption gave Emily rights to inherit from me if I died without a will. But it did not give her rights to my assets while I was alive. I called my financial advisor, Karen, who managed my retirement accounts and investments. Karen, I need to make some changes to my accounts. I am removing Emily as beneficiary from everything. I also need to close a college fund and transfer those assets into my retirement portfolio. There was a pause on the line. Andy, she said carefully, that is a significant decision. Are you sure you want to do this? Emily is counting on that money for school. She made it clear yesterday that I am not her father. I replied, she told me to disappear from their family. I am simply honoring her request and protecting my assets accordingly. Karen was quiet for a moment, then said she would start processing the paperwork immediately. Next, I contacted 3 real estate agents I had worked with professionally over the years. Within 2 hours, I had competitive market analyses showing my house could sell for $740,000 in the current market. I listed it that afternoon with the agent who promised the fastest sale. The listing went live by evening. Claire noticed something was wrong when she saw the for sale sign go up in our yard 2 days later. She came into my office where I was reviewing offers. We had already received 3 above asking price. Andy, what is that sign doing in our yard? She demanded. I looked up from my laptop. I am selling the house just like you asked. We never asked you to sell the house, Claire said, her voice rising. We asked you to move out so Daniel could move in. This is my house. Claire, I bought it before we married. You have no legal claim to it. I am selling it and using the proceeds for my retirement. You want me to disappear from your family, fine, but I am not funding your lifestyle while I do it. Claire's face went white. You cannot be serious. Where are we supposed to live? That is between you and Daniel, I said calmly. I am sure between his tech job and your pharmaceutical sales experience, you can find something affordable. But I quit pharma to be there for Emily. Claire protested. You said you supported that decision? I did support it. I agreed, when I thought we were building a family together. But Emily made it clear I am not her family. You agreed with her. So now you can support yourself. Over the next week, chaos erupted in the house. Emily found out about the sale when one of her friends saw the listing online and sent it to her. She came storming into my office, screaming about how I was ruining her life. You are selling our house, Emily yelled. Where am I supposed to come home to during college breaks? You told me you were moving in with Daniel. I reminded her. You said you did not want to see me here. I am just making sure that happens by ensuring there is no here to come back to. But this is my home, she cried. I grew up here. All my memories are here. Funny, I said, not looking up from my computer. When you wanted me gone, this was just a house. Now that you are losing it, suddenly it is your home full of precious memories. Which is it? Emily. She had no answer for that. Claire tried a different approach. She came to me with a proposal. Andy, what if we put the house in both our names? Then Emily could inherit it someday, and you could still leave if that is what you want. No, I said simply. The house is already under contract. Closing is in 3 weeks. The buyers were a young couple with twins, paying cash, no financing contingencies. They wanted a quick close, and I was happy to oblige. Claire's parents got involved, calling me to lecture about family obligations and Christian values. Her father, who had always been cordial but distant, suddenly had strong opinions about my responsibilities as a husband and a stepfather. You made commitments. Andy, he said on a speakerphone call with Claire sitting right there, you cannot just abandon your family because of some teenage drama. I did not abandon anyone. I replied, I was asked to disappear. I was told I was not family. I am simply respecting their wishes and protecting my financial future. Claire's mother chimed in. But what about Emily's college? You have been planning for that for years. You cannot just take that away from her. The college fund was my gift to a daughter who wanted me in her life. I explained. Emily made it clear she has a father, and it is not me. Daniel can fund her education. That is what fathers do. The real meltdown came when Emily received a letter from my attorney formally notifying her that the college fund had been closed and the assets redistributed. She was at Daniel's apartment when she opened it and immediately called Claire in hysterics. Emily and Daniel showed up at the house that evening, demanding to speak with me. I met them in the living room where boxes were already packed for my move. You cannot do this, Daniel said, trying to sound authoritative. That money was for Emily's education. You promised to support her through college. I promised to support my daughter. I corrected. Emily informed me she is not my daughter. She has a father, and apparently it is you. So now you get to be the father who pays for college? Congratulations. But I do not have that kind of money saved up. Daniel protested. I am just getting back on my feet financially. That sounds like a problem for Emily's father to solve. I said, which again, you have all made clear is you, not me. Emily was crying now. Real tears, not the manipulative kind. Andy, please. I am sorry for what I said. I was just upset. I did not mean it. Yes, you did, I said quietly. You meant every word. You wanted me gone. You wanted Daniel to be your only father. You got exactly what you asked for. Now you are upset because you are realizing that dads who pay for everything do not grow on trees. Claire jumped in. Andy, this is cruel. She is just a kid. She made a mistake. She is 18, I reminded them. An adult by legal standards. Old enough to make choices about who she considers family. Old enough to live with the consequences of those choices. The house closed escrow 3 weeks later. I walked away with $680,000 after closing costs and paying off the remaining mortgage. I had already rented a modern condo at the Estonian downtown. Minimal space, no memories. I took only what was mine, furniture I had bought before the marriage, my personal items, my office equipment. Everything Claire had picked out over the years stayed in the house for the new owners to deal with. The day before I moved out, I did one final thing. I left an envelope on the kitchen counter addressed to Emily. Inside was a letter and a check for $5,000. The letter read, Emily, this check represents roughly 1 month of the expenses I covered for you over 14 years. 1 month out of 168. It is yours to keep. No strings attached. Consider it a graduation gift from someone who was never your father, just someone who was there. The remaining $175,000 from your college fund is now securing my retirement. Your real father can fund your education. That is what real fathers do. You wanted me to disappear, so I am disappearing. But I am taking with me everything I brought to this family, which turns out was everything that mattered. I hope the car was worth it. Andy, I moved out on a Tuesday, did not say goodbye to Claire or Emily, just loaded my belongings into a moving truck and drove away from 14 years of my life. My phone started blowing up immediately. Text messages from Claire begging me to reconsider, voicemails from Emily crying and apologizing, emails from Claire's family calling me heartless and vindictive. I blocked them all, changed my number, made it clear through my attorney that all communication needed to go through legal channels. 3 months later, I heard through a mutual acquaintance that Claire and Daniel had moved in together into a rental house on the other side of town. Apparently, neither of them could afford anything close to the neighborhood where we had lived. Emily had enrolled at Austin Community College instead of the university she had been planning on. Daniel's tech company had downsized and he had been laid off, so money was tight. 6 months after I moved out, I ran into Emily at a coffee shop in the 2nd Street district. She was working behind the counter, wearing an apron, taking orders. When she saw me, her face went pale. Andy, she said quietly when I reached the register, I did not know you came here. I just moved to the neighborhood. I replied, small coffee, black. She made my drink with shaking hands, and when she handed it to me, she said, I am sorry for everything. I know, I said, taking the coffee. But sorry does not pay for college, does it? I left a generous tip and walked out. I did not look back. That is where my story ends, or maybe where it really begins. I am not the villain in this story, no matter how Claire and her family try to paint me. I was a man who gave 14 years of his life to raising a child who was not his blood, who worked hard to provide stability and opportunities, who loved that little girl like she was my own. And when that girl became an adult and decided I was disposable, I protected myself. Some people say I should have been the bigger person, should have continued supporting Emily despite her rejection, should have understood that teenagers say hurtful things they do not mean. But here's what I learned. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Emily showed me I was never her father, just a wallet with a pulse. Claire showed me I was never her partner, just a paycheck with benefits. I am 52 years old, financially secure, and finally living my life on my own terms. I date when I want to. I travel when I feel like it. I invest in my future instead of someone else's. And I sleep just fine at night knowing that I gave that family every opportunity to appreciate what they had. They chose to throw it away. Now, before we wrap up, I need to be honest with you. This story, as powerful as it is not a true account of real events. It is a narrative crafted to explore themes of family, loyalty, and self-worth. But the emotions, the lessons, the questions it raises, those are very real. And if this story resonated with you, perhaps it touched on something you have experienced or feared in your own life. If you found this story valuable, please share it with others who might need to hear it. Leave a comment below about a time when standing up for yourself cost you a relationship. And do not forget to subscribe for more stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary strength. Because everyone has something they are carrying. Sometimes it is the weight of being taken for granted. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the freedom to walk away. Thank you for listening.